All right, we are live.
Thank you. Welcome everybody tonight to the Joint Community Development and Finance meeting. Before we start, I'd like to let everybody know that I received a call from Victor Stewart about an hour ago and that he cannot attend. So, call Community Development. Mr. Tollett, could you call Finance?
Excuse me? At this time, I'll call Finance to order.
Thank you, Mr. Tollett. Two items on the agenda for the meeting tonight. First item is the approval of the August 31st, 2020 Joint Community Development Finance meeting minutes. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
From the
Okay.
finance side?
No, it's just,
Okay.
yeah, thank you. Okay, item 2 is the matter of a second public hearing for the 2021 Community Development Block Grant Action Plan and 2020-2024 Consolidated Plan. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held on October 13th, 2020 in Elyria City Council Chambers, Elyria City Hall, 131 Court Street, Elyria, Ohio, at 6 p.m. concerning the city's formula for the year 2021 Community Development Block Grant Program and the 2020-2024 Consolidated Plan Analysis and Fair Housing Choice Update for 2021. The intent of the plan is to create a housing and community development strategy in which the city of Elyria identifies sources and programs to address various needs for the 2021 program year. The purpose of the public hearing is to review the draft action plan and obtain the views of citizens of the city's community development and economic development and fair housing to provide the opportunity for citizens' participation in determining activities to be funded. Are there any proponents? Ashley.
Thank you. This is the second of 3 public hearings that we are holding for the city's 2021 CDBG program funds. For clarity, tonight it's only a public hearing. We're not requesting a vote at this time. The goal is just to give you an overview of the funding requests that we received. We're also going to present to you a budget sheet that lists out all of the funding requests, how much we're over from what we have available, and we're also going to provide a secondary budget sheet tonight for you to kind of show where we can move some money around with now that we have these additional CDBG COVID dollars, et cetera, to hopefully make this process a little bit easier for you. So just to recap, the first public hearing was held August 31st. We accepted funding requests from August 31st until October 1st. As a reminder, Hud Guidelines, as you begin to look at all of these and look at your budgets, we can't budget more than 20% for admin, and we can't budget more than 15% for public service activities. In previous years, any unaccounted carryover was always programmed into the same activity, and if the same activity was not funded, we would put it into housing rehab as needed through the means of a substantial amendment. It is advisable that the full 15% that's available for CDBG 21 funds for public service activities is not budgeted, as there's no guarantee that 100% of the funds will be expended in that program year. So when HUD looks at this cap, we budget it for what we're allocated, but HUD looks at it for what we actually expend. We did provide all of the council members with copies of all the applications that we received. You should have them at your chair tonight. Hopefully over the next couple of weeks, you can take some time to look them over, review them, and if you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to assist. So if Mona, if you could pull up the current program year. Yeah, the current. Okay. Thank you. The budget page. Okay, so just to kind of give you an overview of what we have currently, we have budgeted for our administration activity. That's always capped out at the full 20%. Some of these activities were from carryover from the 2019 funds, but I'll just go over them with you. We did South Park tennis courts, South Park playground equipment, the South Park Trail, a sidewalk program, the Slim and Blade activity in the downtown. The library is receiving funding for a statue, and some funds for economic development. I apologize, the economic development was through the COVID. We also funded housing rehab. The housing rehab, we typically do anywhere between 15 to 20 home repairs a year, and it also helps assist with the salaries for the staff that help run those programs. We fund code enforcement. We have CDBG target areas, and it helps to assist with the salaries of the code enforcement inspectors. And then, as always, we have our various public service activities that different nonprofits run, as well as our Parks and Rec programming. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Mona here. Are you good, or do you want me to go on? Yes, yes. Okay. So are you guys able to see on your screens what we're showing right here real quick?
Some of us don't even have screens.
You don't? Because for some reason this monitor is not turning on behind you.
Yeah, thank you. You never know.
Corey, if you can hear me. There's some technical difficulties with getting this projector to turn on.
Can't see that.
So we're trying to figure this out. Sorry for the confusion. We came down beforehand and everything worked fine, and now it's not working. But, so we were just thinking, we got a lot of COVID money. Ashley, she's going to say something there. We got a lot of COVID money in, and as you know, every year we get way more funding requests than we have money able to fund. And fortunately, a lot of the public service activities that, a lot of the public service organizations that applied for funding, we are able to, they can also apply for the COVID funding. So in order to make, this money stretch more for the CDBG 2021 funds, we can move some of those applications over to the COVID funding and be able to fund all of the public service organizations that have applied for funding, and also be able to then utilize some of the 2021 funds for public facilities. So nobody would not be funded under these new proposed changes. It would just be, some of them would be funded through the COVID program, and some of them would be funded through the CDBG 2021 funds. And so every year we also have, admin, housing rehab, code enforcement. Those budgets don't really change with the programming. So we have those minimums in there as well. And then we also received 4 funding requests from engineering, and 3 of them were storm sewer priorities. We just took the first priority, which is on Penfield, because we didn't have, so for those of you that can see that, we just took the priority 1 and kind of reduced it because even with moving all the public service activities over, we did not have enough funding for that. And then with the proposed changes, that puts us to with all the funding applications, we were negative over $1 million. And then with the proposed changes, moving those nonprofits into COVID and reducing some of the public facilities, we were 68.35 to the good, and then under our public service cap. So we're not asking you to vote on this tonight, and these are just some suggested changes. Obviously, all the funding requests are here. So it was just one of our changes. We'll ask at the third public hearing is when we'll kind of work more with the budget, and then there'll be a final committee meeting in order to vote on the changes. It's not working?
Yes, I apologize for these technical difficulties. I will let you know that we are going to go ahead and email these spreadsheets to you as well, so that you will be able to see them as a working document over the next couple of weeks. So it'll make what we're saying a lot more clear. And if you have any questions on how these spreadsheets are set up or anything like that, you know that you're always more than welcome to call either one of us, and we'd be more than happy to assist you with that. So, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. My question, is this a reallocation of COVID funds that Finance has previously committed to use for police and fire funding?
Through you. So the city received CDBG COVID dollars earlier this year prior to the CARES Act money, so it's actually a separate pot of money. And council did go ahead and allocate those funds to small business programs and
Right.
also to assist with like youth services, food banks, et cetera. So we do have a small chunk of that money remaining, which we would be able to fit into
This.
with what we already have done. And also in about mid-September, the city was notified that we're going to be receiving about $252,000 in additional CDBG COVID funds. So in order for us to receive those monies, we're going to have to go through the substantial amendment process, just like we did with the first round. So, but this is something where we can utilize those funds to assist us with this whole planning process.
And then excuse me, through you, Mr. Chair. For the small business grants that we are getting close to wrapping up right now, if we have any leftover funds, which I know we're going to be right down to the wire with those funds, but if there are some funds, can those be transferred to the CBDG fund, COVID fund?
So you're asking, can the CARES Act be transferred to CDBG? I'm unsure.
CBDG COVID, how we did
CDBG
that.
COVID, that I'm not 100% finance director. Do you have any opinion on that as far as that money goes?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've not seen anything that would allow us to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Jesse, do you have your hand up?
Got it answered right there.
Oh, okay, thank you. Any other questions from anyone on the panel?
So as we're looking at this, what we can do is, I would like to note that there are some people out in the audience right now that did submit a funding request. I don't know if you want to give them an opportunity to speak, or if you would like for Mona and I to give you a brief overview of all of the funding requests that we received, just for your knowledge before, so you don't have to dig real deep into that. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started on that. Mona, did you want to start this, or just the brief overview? Or do you want me to?
Okay, I'll do it.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Mitchell.
Ms. Scott, I saw on the spreadsheet that We Care Elyria is requesting, I did not see them in the packet. Did they submit anything?
For the Parks and Rec Department?
No, We Care, the food bank.
Oh, We Care, We Share?
Yeah. right there.
They did submit,
All right, I'll do that.
it should be in there. We'll
Maybe I
double
just
check that.
overlooked it.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely double check that.
Okay. Okay, go ahead and give us the overview when you...
So for the public service activities, we receive funding requests from Boys and Girls Club, the Salvation Army, Spark Theater, Save Our Children, the Elyria Mini Pioneers, Second Baptist Church Adopt a School Initiative, Neighborhood Alliance, the Horizon Education Centers, the Lorraine County Urban League, We Care, We Share, and those were all for youth programming, senior programming, food banks, and then the new one was the Urban League submitted a funding request to provide fair housing services, which is required by HUD. We have to do a certain amount of trainings and outreach each year, so they had put together a program in order to provide those services for the city. That was, and also the We Care, We Share was a new funding applicant, and that was for food bank as a result of people's decreased income from COVID. So almost all of those we had were appropriate for COVID funding. The only ones that we didn't really suggest moving over, and we suggested keeping them, funding them under the CDBG 2021 grant, was Adopt a School. After speaking with Mr. Love, we kind of thought that it should stay with the CDBG 2020 funding. Also, the Elyria Mini Pioneer, since it is like a football program, it wasn't really reasonable to say that it was a COVID response item, but again, those we did not say not to fund, we just suggested funding them under the normal allocation program. And I believe everybody else in the Urban League was appropriate for CDBG COVID funding. For the public facilities, we received 3 funding requests for storm sewers. So those were kind of divided up by area. So there was Penfield, there's an area on Penfield, there's an area on Rockfern, and a couple other areas, but they prioritized those. So the first one that they said which really needed funding was the Penfield. So that funding request totaled almost $973,000. So there wasn't enough for that. So we kind of just capitalized on that first priority. There was also a funding request from the mayor's office for the West Park Trail. And I know Director Scott had spoke with HUD, and the West Park area is not in an eligible census tract, so it wasn't going to, we weren't going to be able to fund that. And then the rest was administration, housing rehab, code enforcement, the typical items that we fund.
Another note I'd like to mention in your packets for the Parks and Rec Department, because the funding that was allocated this year was not expended as a result of COVID, and the programming had, stopped for the short amount of time. What was suggested was we just carry this year's money into next year instead of doing an amendment, removing it just to allocate it into 2021. What we can do is just carry that money over for 2021.
Mr. Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Ashley, about how much is carrying over from parks?
Just about the full dollar amount.
Which
Mona,
was,
can you pull that?
I don't recall.
Yeah, we're going to pull that up here right now, and I can give you that exact. We need is that on our actual budget sheet? But was that right? Yeah, let's do the actual budget. So on our current budget sheets, Corey. Okay, sorry, if you can scroll over. So for the Youth Open Rec Program, a total of $8,789 was budgeted, and there is a balance of $8,067. So about $750 was expended this year in that activity.
$4,000 under the senior.
And about $4,000 was expended under the senior program. So they were budgeted for $28,435,000. So it looks like there's just under $24,000 remaining in that activity. And then for the Reach and Rise camps, a total of $7,238 was allocated for that activity. None of that money was spent. So that would be 100%.
And one other question, Mr. Chair. So am I understanding with everybody that's requested funds and using the COVID dollars, we can fund everybody in full and still have $68 left over? Is that?
For the public service, that is correct. For the public facilities, we didn't have enough money to fund all of the public facilities.
But in terms of these proposals?
Yes.
That makes it easy.
Mm-hmm. Finally. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I'll see if there are any proponents. Are there any proponents that would like to speak? You can just please come up to the microphone, state your name and name of organization and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm Alicia Foss, President and CEO of Neighborhood Alliance. I just wanted to speak briefly about our proposal. Neighborhood Alliance is requesting funds for our child enrichment program here in Elyria to allow us to hire additional teachers for summer camp for the 2021 summer. Our capacity as well as our ratios have been reduced because of COVID, and so we are looking to put on more teachers so that we can continue those summer camp programs and have enough capacity to serve the kids that come to us in need. Right now, our child care centers are at capacity and cannot take any additional children. We anticipate that this will continue through the rest of this year into next summer. And so we would be looking at potentially not being able to take children or having them waitlisted next summer. So that's why we're requesting the additional funding to allow us to open additional classrooms and serve those kids.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, we thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any proponents? Sir, please come up to the microphone and state your name and address and organization for the record.
Good evening. My name is Houston Love, President of Adopt a School Initiative at Second Baptist Church. And it was stated that if we had money left over from 2020, that money would be carried over to 2021. It was said that the money usually occurs between June and December 31st. And as of December 31st, everything starts over again, but there's no money between December 31st and June of 2021. And they were saying that for the 2020, the rest of the 2020 year, if you have money left over, you're going to take that money and use it in 2021 from January to June. And from June to December 31st of 2021, there would be no money. I heard that proposal, and I did not agree with it. I don't know what to be worked out. I don't want to go from, that time to the end of, the year with not very much money at all. I don't mind the carryover and using money from January to June, which we were not able to do before. But I don't like the idea of when, at the end of that period, there's nothing more for the end of the year. So if that could be corrected, I would appreciate it. Do you understand what I was trying to say?
Does everybody have an understanding? Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
All right. Any questions before I sit down?
Are there any questions from anyone on the panel?
Because we still have to expend some of the 2020 money all the way up to December 31st. And that's not done yet. We're still, purchasing things. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any more proponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? And are there any opponents? Did anybody else want to add anything before I call this a public hearing? Ashley, are you good?
I am good. Just like I said before, we will email you these working documents so you can get a feel for what they look like before the next meeting. I apologize for the technology issues here tonight, but we'll make sure that it's resolved for the next meeting. But if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and give us a call.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure they got a couple of weeks here to get it fixed, and we should be good to go. Okay, I declare this second public hearing has been held. Seeing no further business for community development, I accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion has been made. Second.
Question?
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Mr. Tollett, you can take over finance. No, we just had the, yeah. Oh, that's okay, that's okay.
I'm good. Please. Okay, with Mr. Stewart being absent tonight, I'll take over the finance portion of the meeting. First item on the agenda is the approval of the July 27th and August 31st, 2020 finance meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second. Motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Next item on the agenda, the matter of authorizing the mayor to apply for and accept, if offered, a grant from the Ohio EPA for the replacement of lead service and galvanized service lines for both public and private sides of the city. Safety Service Director Firestein.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a grant opportunity through the EPA. It's more of a forgivable loan that will hopefully turn into a grant for us to replace lead lines throughout the city, either residential or on the city side as well. And I know Superintendent Jacob is here to address that issue and try to answer any and all questions the committee may have.
Thank you. Mr. Jacob?
Good evening, through the chair. I believe we passed this last month, authorizing us to apply for the grant. I believe what Service Director sent in was us authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter in a contract for the installation of new lead service lines on the public and private side, pending EPA approval of the grant.
Yeah,
I think that's,
through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that is what the September 21st referral says. So the previous ordinance that was passed at the last full council meeting did authorize the city to go ahead and get our application together. And then Superintendent Jacob is here tonight to ask the committee to move forward with the bid process and the contract process. And just, well, for my own clarification as well as any, Director Pileski's and also for the committee, this isn't, your typical, at least what we're used to, grant. It is, a loan, at least on paper, and, based on how the financing works, there is the potential that it will be forgivable. Did I explain that properly? It is a loan program.
It is a loan program, but if we're accepted for it, it'll be forgiven with the
Correct.
acceptance in
Right.
January.
So, but part of the legislation will be that there is an agreement with the Ohio EPA for a loan, and also a repayment source will need to be designated. That is part of entering into the programming. But obviously, because there is a deadline, everything needs to be done before the end of the year, as far as getting all the technicalities in place, as far as logistics of who's going to be doing this work, contractor-wise. That's why we're here tonight.
Mr. Jacob, when you presented before, didn't you say there would be about 300 homes if we receive, let me back up, there would be about 300 homes done a year, is that correct?
Yes, through the chair. If we get this, we can do between 200 and 300 houses, just depending on what the bids come in. They're averaging around the state 5,000 a house. That's to replace the service line from the water main to the shutoff.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Call for the question.
All those in favor signify by the voting sign aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Yeah, I read it.
Was there a motion on the floor? Do it again. Please. Okay.
I'll call for the motion.
So move.
You need a second.
Call for the question.
Okay.
We're good, yeah.
Are you sure we're good?
We're good.
All right.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 3 item on the agenda, the matter of inactive, delinquent public utility accounts. Ms. Connor?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The list that was provided were 2 service addresses for inactive accounts for property lien. Actually, since this was approved at Resolution Board, the second property, 241 Cornell, has been paid in full. So we just need approval for the first one to be sent forward for a lien.
Excuse me. Can you repeat your last sentence? I apologize.
Oh, sure. Okay, on the list that was submitted, there are two addresses. The 241 Cornell Avenue for the 53578 has been paid in full. So we just have the one that needs to go forward for a property lien, the 631 Cornell Avenue.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I would call for the motion. Do I have a second? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. The last item on the agenda, the matter of Last item on the agenda is the matter of a permanent appropriations changes. Finance Director Pileski.
We have none this evening, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Pulaski. Without any further business, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Yes, Director Firestein?
Thank you through the chair to members of the committee. I will make sure this is brief, that way not to interrupt the more important motion to adjourn. But I want to make one mention that the deadline for expending the dollars from the Coveted CARES Act, the deadline has been extended to November 20th. So I want to make sure that council was aware of that. That was an email to the mayor from Ohio Grants Partnership through the state. So I just want to make mention of that. That way council was aware of it, and I thought this was the appropriate place to do it. But
yes,
definitely did not want to get in the way of the more important.
And in our Economic Development Committee meeting this evening, we discussed that, and we are almost completely through. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, on the motion to adjourn, can we? I'll call for the question.
Call for the question.
All in favor? Voting sign aye. Opposed? Good night, everyone.